Hello again. Like many people in Britain, I view Albanians a little askance, suspecting that they are more likely to be up to no good than the average Englishman. Is this a sign of galloping xenophobia, do you think? Are some of us rabid nationalists and little Englanders to feel this way? Shouldn't we treat all nationalities and ethnicities the same and avoid making any prejudicial assumptions about them? Possibly so, but new tables released by the Ministry of Justice reveal something which many of us have known all along, which is that Albanians in this country really are more prone than anybody else to be up to no good. In the white British population, roughly 14 people per 10,000 are in prison. Among Albanians in Britain, 232 per 10,000 are in prison. This means in simple terms that Albanians in this country are 16 times as likely to end up in prison as ordinary people. Other nationalities and ethnicities also seem to have a propensity to land in jail. Then, too, there are groups who are less likely to be in jail than white British people. This is curious and likely to confirm a lot of the supposedly irrational prejudices which afflict so many of us. I, for example, would be very reluctant to become financially involved with Yorubas. In the same way, I might think twice about renting out a house to Albanians. These are certainly examples of prejudices, but prejudices informed by common sense and also by playing the odds. If I rent out a house to Mr. Smith, an ordinary white English guy, then of course he might fail to pay the rent on time, or he could perhaps trash the place. He would, however, be very unlikely to fill up the house with earth, steal electricity from the neighbours, and establish a cannabis farm, leaving the house essentially uninhabitable in the future. With an Albanian tenant, there is statistically a far higher chance of this happening. Of course, not all Albanians are gangsters and drug dealers any more than are all English people, but looked at purely from a mathematical perspective, the Englishman would be a better bet to rent my house to. Most people make calculations of this kind all the time, but they would never dream of sharing their views with anybody outside their immediate family, for fear of either falling foul of the law at worst, or at best being seen as a racist. I think almost everybody living in a pluralist society like Britain examines their day-to-day life in this way. They view a Sikh in a turban as representing a lower level of risk to them on a tube train than, say, a drunk football fan. They watch a tall Caribbean male more carefully in the street at night than they would a woman with a child. Whether we are renting property, going to the shops, driving along the street, or carrying out some financial transaction, the gender, ethnicity, age, nationality, and so on of the people with whom we are dealing is always at the back of our minds. It's interesting that this topic is not discussed openly more often. Obviously, with the Race Relations Act, which makes it an offence to discriminate people when it comes to jobs or renting accommodation, most people are a little cautious about allowing their thought processes and decision making to be too visible. Even the most dedicated anti-racist, though, carries on in this way, although they might take more care to conceal what they are doing. It does make for an awful lot of hypocrisy in society when almost everybody is engaged in an activity which they feel obliged to deny.